Yeah.
You mentioned AI, you mentioned some other features. I know looking at the history of crises and pandemics and what we find is that there's a lot of disruption that happens specifically after those periods. So what do you see in this world, in this industry, as some of the disruptions you expect to see, say, even over just the next few months?
I think there'll be quite a lot of changes. I think short term and then over to the next 2 to 10 years, and I think they'll just extrapolate out. At the moment, the awareness of neobanks remains low, with only 67, I think it was about 67% of people actually saying that they could even name a neobank within Australia, for example. So if you look at the Australian market, and I think this will change. I think this will the exposure will increase. I think there'll be more neobanks launching into the market, or kind of neobank derivatives. So what I mean by that is Upbank, because Upbank hasn't actually got an ADI. It essentially sits on the top of Bendigo Bank. So I think there'll be more exposure on that. I think you'll find globally, but again specifically Australia, I think you'll find that Australians will become more comfortable with neobanks, and again with more of the online banking, digital banking. So I mean, it's traditional that when you want to do banking, you walk into a branch, and I think that individuals will become more accepting that actually you don't need to do that, and you can do online banking or telephone banking, for example. So I think that will become more popular and more accepting. I think that the AI will further integrate within the banking space. I think that's becoming more and more important. Sort of the machine learning, one product fits all, I think will land up disappearing. And I think that will continue to grow. I think in the next couple of months, I think COVID has very much had an impact on banking, not just from a sense of financial position, but I think that more Australians, for example, and again globally, are working from home, and I think they'll continue to do so. And therefore, I think that you'll find that the demand for online services will increase, and the fact that people want to be able to access their banking services from anywhere. So that demand will increase as well. So I think short term that will happen. It's happening already, and I think that will happen even more. I think that you'll find that the acceptance of having more than one bank account will also increase. It's one of the things I get asked when I'm presenting and giving keynote speeches at some of the events here is that, how are you going to get Australians to move from their big four institutional bank to you? And I'm saying, well, who wants to get them to move? I mean, it's a high probability that they'll still keep that account for certain services and use us for other services. So I think that kind of attitude will change as well. I think that those neobanks that have launched, I think there's an opportunity for them to grow. Even now, they've got a much lower cost to income ratio, which has helped them during COVID. And the digital bank, they've shown that it's a successful model, especially during COVID. And I know that 82% of Australians, for example, under the age of 55, are prepared to consider using a neobank for at least one product. And I think that will increase in terms of the number of products and the number of people and the age group that will be prepared to use the neobanks. And I think the other point is, I think you'll find that at the moment, it's the neobanks within Australia, for example, that have launched here. And I think you'll find that as with Europe, where you've had, for example, mBank growing out of Poland and spreading across Europe, and same with number 26, for example, I think you'll find that they will spread also across into Europe. So already you've got Revolut landed in Australia. Like I said, OakNorth is looking to land as well. So I think you'll find short-term and long-term that neobanks from outside Australia will land, but also look to try and take market share. Open banking, I think that will gain more traction. There's a number of businesses launching around improving that process. And again, I think the attitude towards open banking will become more trusted. I think that at the moment, if you want to switch from one account to another bank account, so I don't know, a Westpac or a CBA and switch to, let's say, Judo or whatever, the current account switching service is still not particularly feasible to make that process smooth. No. I've been trying to get traction and lobbying government on a federal level and actually on a state level, which sadly without any success. But I think until that gets sorted, that process is not really fit for purpose because there isn't even a redirection service in place. I mean, lots of change. I mean, MPP, that process needs to improve as well. And more players need to be involved in that process. It is fairly still dominated still by the big four. I think gamification will improve. I think that will be included more within banking services. You've seen a lot of that within Europe, not just within banking, but also within other financial service businesses such as brokerage. Yeah. And finally, I think ASIC and APRA will become more sophisticated in this space. So I think already, I know that the ADI requirements are being reviewed at the moment to make some changes to avoid situations such as what's happened with Zindra at the moment.
Yeah.
So how's that list?
Wow. That's quite a good and extensive list. No, I'm really looking forward to that. And look, like you said, Australia may be a little bit behind. I think, everyone jokes that Australia is 5 years behind the rest of the world, but we do end up catching up. I think COVID will have a good impact because if there's anything, a crisis like a pandemic does, is it makes us better, adaptable to change. So if there ever was a time for us to decide, you know what, I'm actually not loyal to my big four banks, they make it incredibly difficult to go overseas and access my money, amongst other things. I think, next year or 2021 would be a good year for that kind of mentality. So yeah, I'm looking forward to that.
I mean, just picking up on your point around Australia being about 5 years behind. I mean, in terms of banking, I would say they're probably 8 to 10 years behind.
Oops.
Right? So I'd say, but having said that, though, I don't mean that in a derogatory sense. I mean, my spin on it is that I think that Australia kind of sits back, lets everyone else screw it up, and then they come in and go, well, this is how it's really done. And I think, quite often, I know from the UK, Australia is used quite often as a template and say, many things to say, well, even the way that COVID's been handled, immigration, lots of things to say, well, actually, this is how Australia do it. And most people in the UK I'll take the opinion, and I certainly do, that actually this is the way it should be done. So I look at the 8 to 10 years behind as not being something that's derogatory or detrimental. I look at it as huge opportunity. And I'm just very pleased and grateful to be part of that we can start moving it forward. And I'm pretty certain that some of these businesses coming out of Australia will become world class and will be the templates globally of how you are to build financial service businesses. So, and actually looking at even at the regulator as well, taking the, PRA and the FCA 10 years ago, they had to go for a steep learning curve. And I think that the way that ASIC and APRA have conducted themselves at this early stage of neobanks, I think is extremely well. And certainly the way they conduct themselves through COVID, I think that's been to be congratulated on as well. So, so Australia is behind, but it will catch up. And I think also it's a good point you raise around, customers. I think they won't be forgiving. I think if once COVID passes, and it will pass, I think there will be a review of individuals' banking services and products that they've got with their existing banks, especially if they've not been supported either individual or their businesses. So I think that some of these banks, I think they do need to be a little bit careful that they don't become too flippant. I know in the UK, many of the banks there, when the neobank phenomenon was launching, they didn't really think it would have an impact, and it did. And that's why now many of them have actually even invested into the neobanks, because they realize they can't change their ship around that quickly because it's too big and cumbersome. Whereas to hedge their bets, they're investing in the neobanks now.
Yeah, brilliant. Looking forward to that happening in Australia. And I really love your example about Australia. We kind of sit back, let the rest of the world screw up, and then do it better. It's an example I use with a lot of SaaS startups that I talk to. I say, it's not about being first to market, it's about being best to market. And that's when you truly have the most success.
Absolutely. Absolutely right. Absolutely right.